June 5, 1944, 11:47 p.m. A quiet house in the London suburbs. Juan Pujol García sits at his kitchen table, fingers trembling as he types on an Enigma encryption machine. He's composing a message, a warning. Intelligence so urgent, so critical, that if the Germans receive it in time, it could change the course of World War II. The message reads, "Massive Allied invasion fleet departing southern England. Destination: Normandy beaches. Operation begins dawn June 6th. This is not a diversion. This is the main assault." Juan encrypts the message carefully, checks it twice, then transmits it to his handler in Madrid. The handler will forward it immediately to German High Command in Berlin. Within hours, Adolf Hitler will read this message. The Führer will know exactly where and when the largest amphibious invasion in history will strike. He'll have time to reinforce Normandy's defenses, move additional panzer divisions to the beaches, prepare for the assault. The Allied invasion will face a prepared, reinforced enemy. D-Day could fail. The war could be lost. Except for one small detail, Juan Pujol García is not a German spy. He's a British double agent. And everything in that message is true. But the Germans won't believe it, because Juan has spent 3 years training them not to. This is the story of the greatest spy in World War II. A man who worked for both Germany and Britain simultaneously. A man who convinced the Nazis he controlled a network of 27 agents across Britain when every single one was fictional. A man who sent over 500 messages to German intelligence, and they believed every word. A man who won medals from both Hitler and King George VI, the only person in history decorated by both sides in the same war. This is the story of Agent Garbo, the spy who saved D-Day by telling the truth at exactly the right moment, after 3 years of lies. Barcelona, Spain, February 1912. Juan Pujol García is born into a middle-class Spanish family. Nothing about his childhood suggests he'll become history's greatest double agent. He's not particularly athletic, not especially charismatic, not brilliant at school. He works various jobs, selling chicken, managing a cinema, running a small hotel. Ordinary work for an ordinary man. When the Spanish Civil War erupts in 1936, Juan tries to stay neutral. The war is brutal. Republicans versus nationalists. Ideologies clashing violently. Juan hates both sides equally. He sees the cruelty, the fanaticism, the pointless death. He serves briefly in the Republican Army, deserts, gets arrested, serves in the nationalist forces. Hates that too. The experience teaches him one thing. He despises totalitarianism in all its forms. By 1939, when World War II begins, Juan has strong feelings about the conflict. He loathes Nazi Germany, hates fascism, fears what will happen if Hitler wins. But Juan isn't a soldier. He's not trained in combat or espionage. He's just an ordinary Spanish civilian who wants the Allies to win. So he decides to become a spy, not for money, not for glory, because he believes it's the right thing to do. January 1941. Juan walks into the British Embassy in Madrid, asks to speak to someone about intelligence work, offers his services to help fight the Nazis. The British politely decline. They have no idea who this random Spanish civilian is. No credentials, no connections, no training, just enthusiasm and a strong dislike of Hitler. The embassy staff assume he's either a German plant trying to infiltrate British intelligence or he's mentally unstable. Either way, rejected. Juan tries again. Different approach, different story. Rejected again. He tries a third time, fourth time, fifth time. The British keep saying no. most people would give up. Juan doesn't. He has an idea. A crazy, ambitious, possibly insane idea. If the British won't hire him, maybe the Germans will. And once he's working for German intelligence, he can approach the British again. This time with credentials. Proof he has access to German handlers. Something valuable to offer. It's the kind of plan that could get him killed. But Juan commits completely. April 1941. Juan approaches the German embassy in Madrid. Says he's a Spanish official with access to British secrets. Claims he's ideologically aligned with Nazi Germany. Offers to spy for the Abwehr, German military intelligence. The Germans are more receptive than the British. But they're not idiots. They test him, ask questions, demand proof of his access and loyalty. Juan improvises brilliantly. He claims he's planning to travel to Britain on business. Once there, he'll establish contacts and begin gathering intelligence. The Abwehr gives him invisible ink, a codebook, and instructions for sending secret messages. They assign him the code name Arabelle. Juan has no intention of going to Britain. He can't. Spain is neutral. Getting a visa to Britain is nearly impossible for a Spanish civilian, and even if he could get there, he'd have no idea how to spy. Instead, Juan goes to Lisbon, Portugal, sits in the public library, reads everything he can find about Britain, studies maps, newsreels, train timetables, guidebooks, magazines. Then he starts writing fake intelligence reports. From Lisbon, pretending to be in London, Juan sends his first message to his German handlers. The message describes British military preparations he's observed in Liverpool. Troop movements, convoy schedules, all completely fictional. The Germans believe him. They ask for more. Juan obliges. He invents reports about military installations, RAF bases, naval movements, all created from his imagination and library research. The Germans pay him, modest amounts at first, then larger sums as they become convinced of his value. There's just one problem. Juan knows nothing about Britain. His reports contain obvious errors. He describes Glaswegians as loving wine, claims trains from Liverpool to London take hours longer than they actually do, places military bases in locations that anyone familiar with Britain would know are wrong. The Germans don't notice, or if they do, they assume these are minor errors from a valuable but inexperienced agent. Juan realizes he's actually fooling them. German intelligence is believing his entirely fictional reports. This could work, but he needs help. Professional help. February 1942. Juan tries the British again. This time he doesn't walk into an embassy. He sends a letter to the British naval attaché in Lisbon. Explains his situation. He's currently working for German intelligence, sending them fake information, and he wants to work for Britain as a double agent. The British are skeptical. This sounds exactly like a German trap. But they investigate. They intercept some of Juan's messages to the Abwehr. Realize he's actually doing what he claims, feeding the Germans false intelligence. The British are impressed. This random Spanish civilian, with no training, has successfully infiltrated German intelligence and is running a one-man deception operation. They decide to take a chance. MI5, British counterintelligence, brings Juan to London. Assigns him a handler, Thomas Harris, a brilliant intelligence officer who speaks fluent Spanish. Together, they'll transform Juan's amateur operation into the most successful deception in military history. The British give Juan a new code name, Garbo, named after the Swedish actress Greta Garbo, famous for her deceptive performances. Juan Pujol García, the failed chicken salesman from Barcelona, is now Agent Garbo, and he's about to fool Hitler. London, 1942. Tomas Harris sits across from Juan in a safe house. They're planning something unprecedented. "The Germans trust you," Harris says, "but one agent can only provide limited information. We need to expand, create a network." Juan nods. "More agents reporting to me?" "Exactly. Except these agents won't be real. We'll invent them. Create fictional personalities. The Germans will think you're running a spy ring across Britain." They start building the network. Each fictional agent needs a complete backstory. Personality, occupation, location, motivations for spying. The details must be believable, consistent, memorable. Agent 1. A Portuguese traveling salesman based in London, covers the capital, travels frequently for business, providing plausible reason for gathering intelligence across southern England. Agent 2. A Swiss businessman in Liverpool, monitors port activities, shipping movements, military convoys passing through one of Britain's major industrial cities. Agent 3. A Venezuelan student in Glasgow, young, idealistic, sympathetic to fascism, reports on Scottish military installations and naval bases. Each agent recruits sub-agents. The network grows organically. Within months, Juan is supposedly controlling 7 agents, then 12, then 18. By 1944, the fictional network contains 27 agents spread across Britain, each one completely imaginary, each one trusted by German intelligence. The logistics are staggering. Juan and Harris must remember every detail about every fictional agent. Their personalities, their locations, their relationships to each other. Every message sent must be consistent with what that particular agent would know and how they would write. Juan develops distinct writing styles for each agent. The Portuguese salesman writes formal, business-like reports. The Venezuelan student is enthusiastic, but sometimes makes grammatical errors in English. The Swiss businessman is meticulous and detail-oriented. The Germans never suspect. They believe they're running the most successful spy network in Britain. The Abwehr pays Juan increasing amounts, promotions, commendations. They consider him their most valuable asset in England. Meanwhile, MI5 is feeding Juan exactly what to report. True information mixed with false. The true information is carefully selected. Things the Germans already know or will discover anyway, through other sources. This establishes credibility. The false information is strategic, designed to mislead, misdirect, create confusion. For example, Juan reports British convoy routes that seem plausible but lead German U-boats to empty ocean. Reports military units stationed in locations they've actually left weeks ago. Reports production figures for aircraft that are deliberately inflated or deflated, depending on what MI5 wants the Germans to believe. The Germans trust everything. They're paying Juan approximately £20,000 annually. In 1940s money, this is an enormous sum. The British are effectively being paid by Germany to run a deception operation against Germany. But the real value isn't the money. It's the access. Through Juan, MI5 has a direct channel to German intelligence. They can plant information, test what the Germans know, learn what questions the Abwehr asks, revealing what they don't know. It's intelligence gold, and it's all building toward one moment. One operation where everything Juan has built, every ounce of credibility he's established, will be put to the ultimate test. Operation Overlord. The invasion of Normandy. D-Day. January 1944. Allied planners face a massive problem. The invasion of Nazi-occupied France is scheduled for June. The location: Normandy beaches. But the Germans have 50 divisions stationed in France. If those divisions concentrate at Normandy during the invasion, the Allies will face disaster. The solution: make the Germans believe the invasion is coming somewhere else. Keep their forces spread out. Prevent them from reinforcing Normandy. This is Operation Fortitude, the largest military deception in history. And Agent Garbo is central to the plan. The deception has multiple elements. Fake armies. The Allies create entire fictional army groups. The first U.S. Army group, supposedly commanded by General George Patton, is stationed in southeast England. Inflatable tanks, dummy aircraft, fake radio traffic, all designed to make German aerial reconnaissance believe a massive force is preparing to invade Pas-de-Calais, the closest point between Britain and France. Fake intelligence, double agents across Britain, coordinated by MI5, send consistent reports confirming the fake army's existence. They describe seeing Patton, observing troop movements, counting divisions. Agent Garbo's role: Juan's fictional network is perfectly positioned to support the deception. His agents are located throughout Britain. They can report on different elements of the fake preparations. Juan's reports to the Abwehr describe in detail. Agent 2 in Liverpool reports seeing massive convoy preparations in northwest England. Suggests an invasion force preparing to attack Norway. Agent 3 in Scotland confirms unusual naval activity. Supports the Norway theory. Agent 4, an American sergeant who's one of Agent 1's sub-agents, is supposedly stationed with Patton's army group in Kent. Reports seeing preparations for a massive invasion force. But the target isn't Normandy. It's Pas-de-Calais. The messages are brilliantly crafted. They contain enough true information to be credible. British troops are genuinely moving. Convoys are actually assembling. But Juan attributes these movements to fictional operations targeting fictional objectives. The Germans believe everything. They reinforce Norway, fearing an Allied invasion there. They keep strong forces at Pas-de-Calais, convinced that's where the real invasion will strike. But there's a critical problem. A problem that could destroy 3 years of careful deception. The invasion is imminent, within weeks. And the Germans are starting to ask harder questions. They want Agent 4, the American sergeant, to provide more specific details. When exactly will the invasion happen? What's the precise target? MI5 faces a terrible dilemma. If Juan refuses to answer, the Germans will become suspicious. 3 years of work could unravel. If Juan answers with lies, says the invasion is targeting Pas-de-Calais on a specific date, and that date passes without invasion, the Germans will know they've been deceived. The only option is the one that seems most dangerous. Tell the truth. June 5, 1944. Juan sits in his London safe house with Thomas Harris. They're composing the most important message of the war. The plan is audacious, insane, brilliant. Juan will send an urgent message to his German handlers, warning them that the invasion fleet is departing for Normandy. He'll report the exact truth. The invasion is happening tomorrow, June 6th, targeting Normandy beaches. The Germans will receive this intelligence hours before the invasion begins. They'll have time to react, reinforce the beaches. The message could doom the invasion. Except for one critical detail: timing. Juan will send the message at midnight, but he'll use a transmission schedule that ensures his Madrid handler won't be monitoring the radio at that hour. The message will sit unread until morning. By the time the Germans decrypt and forward the message to High Command, the invasion will already be underway. Too late to respond. but early enough that the Germans will see Juan tried to warn them. It's a calculated risk. If Juan's handler happens to be monitoring at midnight, the entire invasion could be compromised. Hundreds of thousands of Allied lives at stake. But M5 has studied the handler's patterns. He follows a strict schedule. He won't be listening at midnight. Probably. At 11:47 p.m., Juan begins transmitting. The message is urgent, panicked, exactly what a loyal German agent would send upon discovering the invasion. Urgent, urgent. Massive convoy departing southern ports. Agent 4 reports embarkation in progress. Destination appears to be Normandy. This is not a drill. This is the main invasion. Repeat, this is the main invasion. Normandy beaches. Dawn attack expected. Alert High Command immediately. Juan sends the message, then waits. Midnight passes. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. No response from Madrid. At 6:30 a.m., June 6th, Allied forces begin landing on Normandy beaches, the largest amphibious invasion in history. 150,000 troops, 5,000 ships, 11,000 aircraft. At 8 a.m., Juan's handler in Madrid finally decrypts the previous night's message. He immediately forwards it to Berlin. By the time German High Command reads the warning, Allied troops are already ashore. The invasion is hours old, unstoppable. But from the German perspective, Juan tried to warn them. He sent the intelligence in time. It's not his fault the message was delayed. His loyalty is beyond question. The real deception is just beginning. June 6th through June 9th. D-Day is successful but fragile. Allied forces have established beachheads at Normandy, but the situation is precarious. German forces are counterattacking. Panzer divisions are moving toward Normandy. If the Germans commit their full strength, they could push the Allies back into the sea. The key question for German High Command: is Normandy the main invasion, or is it a diversion? The Allies have nearly 2 million troops in Britain. Only 150,000 landed at Normandy. Where are the rest? Are they preparing for a second, larger invasion? Adolf Hitler himself believes Normandy is a diversion. He thinks the real invasion is still coming at Pas-de-Calais. He orders his generals to keep strong forces there. Don't commit everything to Normandy. Wait for the main attack. This belief is based primarily on intelligence from Agent Arabelle, Juan Pujol García, known to the British as Garbo. June 9th. Juan sends his most important message yet. The message that will win the war. It's long, detailed, written in the panicked, urgent style of an agent who's just discovered something catastrophic. The message says, "I have just held an emergency meeting with my entire network. We have pooled our observations. The conclusion is terrifying. Normandy is a diversion." Agent 4 confirms Patton's army group is still in Kent, fully equipped, preparing for embarkation. The main invasion force has not yet deployed. Normandy was designed to draw German forces away from Pas-de-Calais. The real invasion is imminent. Targeting Pas-de-Calais. Massive force. The Normandy landings were a trick to make you commit your reserves. Do not fall for it. Keep your forces at Pas-de-Calais. The main attack is coming there. The message is perfect. It confirms what Hitler already suspects. It comes from Germany's most trusted agent in Britain. It's supported by reports from other German intelligence sources, many of whom are also British double agents coordinated with Garbo's message. The Germans believe it completely. Hitler orders his generals to maintain strong forces at Pas-de-Calais. 15 divisions, some of Germany's best troops, sitting idle, waiting for an invasion that will never come. Meanwhile, at Normandy, Allied forces consolidate their beachhead. More troops land. More supplies arrive. The foothold becomes a breakthrough. By the time German High Command realizes Normandy is the real invasion and Pas-de-Calais is not being attacked, it's too late. The Allies have broken out of Normandy. They're advancing across France. Paris will be liberated in August. Germany will surrender in May 1945. The war in Europe is effectively won, not just by soldiers and tanks and aircraft, but by a Spanish chicken salesman who convinced Hitler he controlled a network of spies that never existed. July 1944. The Abwehr sends Agent Arabelle a message. The highest honor Germany can bestow on a foreign agent. The Iron Cross, personally approved by Adolf Hitler. Juan Pujol García is now decorated by Nazi Germany for his exceptional service to the Third Reich. November 1944. King George VI awards Juan the Member of the Order of the British Empire for his services to the Allied cause. Juan Pujol García is now the only person in history to receive military decorations from both sides in the same war. The irony is beautiful. The Nazis gave him a medal for intelligence that helped destroy them. The British gave him a medal for feeding the Nazis lies. After the war, Juan faces a problem. The Abwehr might want to find him. Former German intelligence officers might seek revenge once they realize how thoroughly they were deceived. MI5 helps Juan fake his death. In 1949, newspapers report that Juan Pujol García died of malaria in Angola. His death certificate is filed. His grave is registered. Juan isn't dead. He's moved to Venezuela under a new identity, starts a new life, gets married, has children, runs a small business, never tells anyone about his wartime service. For decades, only a handful of MI5 officers know Juan survived. The full story of Agent Garbo remains classified. In 1984, a writer named Nigel West is researching double agents. He tracks down surviving MI5 officers. They mention Garbo. West becomes obsessed, spends years trying to find out what happened to Juan after the war. He eventually discovers Juan is alive. Living in Venezuela, age 72, West contacts him, asks if he'd be willing to tell his story. Juan initially refuses. He spent 40 years in quiet anonymity. Why revisit the past? But West is persistent. Eventually, Juan agrees. On one condition, he wants to visit Britain, see the places where his fictional agents supposedly lived, visit the MI5 headquarters where he worked. In 1984, Juan Pujol García returns to London for the first time since 1945. He's 72 years old. Most people have no idea who he is. But MI5 gives him a tour, shows him the building where he composed his messages, the equipment he used. The BBC interviews him. His story is finally public. The man who saved D-Day by running a network of imaginary spies. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, invites Juan for tea. They discuss the war, the deception, the risks Juan took. Juan returns to Venezuela, lives quietly until his death in October 1988, age 76. His obituary in the Times calls him the greatest double agent of World War II. Military historians agree. No other single intelligence operation had more impact on the war's outcome. Juan Pujol García was not a trained spy, not a soldier, not an intelligence professional. He was an ordinary man who decided extraordinary circumstances required extraordinary action. He applied for spy work and was rejected, so he invented his own spy operation, fooled German intelligence into hiring him, then convinced the British to manage him. He created 27 fictional people, gave them personalities, backgrounds, relationships, kept track of every detail for 3 years without ever making a continuity error significant enough for the Germans to notice. He sent over 500 messages to German intelligence. The Germans believed all of them, paid him the equivalent of millions in today's currency, gave him their highest decoration, and he used that trust to orchestrate the greatest military deception in history. D-Day succeeded for many reasons: Allied air superiority, naval power, the courage of soldiers storming the beaches. But one of the critical factors was German confusion. Hitler's belief that Normandy was a diversion, his decision to keep 15 divisions at Pas-de-Calais waiting for an attack that never came. That confusion was created by Agent Garbo, by Juan Pujol García, the chicken salesman from Barcelona who decided to fight fascism with nothing but imagination and determination. Military historians estimate that Garbo's deception saved tens of thousands of Allied lives, possibly hundreds of thousands. By keeping German divisions away from Normandy during the critical first weeks, Juan gave the Allies time to establish their foothold. Without that time, D-Day might have failed. The war might have lasted years longer. The lesson of Garbo isn't that spies win wars. It's that ordinary people, in the right circumstances, can change history. Not through violence, not through power, but through intelligence, creativity, and absolute commitment to doing what's right. Juan never wanted fame, never sought recognition. He just believed the Nazis needed to be stopped. And when both Britain and Germany told him he couldn't help, he found his own way. He created an entire fictional world, populated it with imaginary people, made the Nazis believe in that world so completely that they based strategic military decisions on its false geography. And then, at the critical moment, he told them the truth, sent them accurate intelligence about D-Day, knowing they wouldn't believe it, because he'd spent 3 years teaching them to trust him while simultaneously training them to believe he was reporting on a fictional invasion of Pas-de-Calais. The truth became the lie. The lie became the truth. And in that confusion, the Allied invasion succeeded. Agent Garbo, Juan Pujol García, the greatest spy in World War II, the man who won medals from both Hitler and King George, the man who saved D-Day with an army that existed only in German imagination. He proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a bomb. It's a story, and someone brave enough to tell it convincingly. 27 agents, 500 messages, 3 years of deception. One crucial truth told at exactly the right moment. Juan Pujol García died in 1988. His obituary was 3 paragraphs long. Most people still don't know his name, but military historians know. D-Day planners know. The soldiers who survived Normandy, because 15 German divisions were waiting at Pas-de-Calais for an invasion that never came. Their grandchildren are alive because of Juan. He received the Iron Cross from Hitler for helping Germany. He received the MBE from King George for defeating Germany. Both were earned by the same actions. The ultimate double agent. His network of 27 spies, all fictional. Every single one imagined, created, given life through nothing but words and consistency, and Juan's absolute commitment to the role. The Germans never suspected, never caught him, trusted him until the end. Agent Garbo, the spy who won the war by telling the truth to people trained to believe his lies. Some heroes carry guns, some fly planes, some storm beaches. Juan Pujol García sat at a typewriter and imagined an army. And that imaginary army changed the world.